Henry and the entire team up at HCH. David Anthony here. I promised you a quick rundown tutorial of our LCH. We're in the factory. We're busy, man. We're pumping them out, so apologize early for any disruption. But I want to give you a quick rundown, quick overview and operation tutorial of the LCH smoker. So right here, we are actually going to be showing you today in our LCH-6-6-SK-G2. This is our second generation dual cavity smoker. Everything that you see today is going to operate the exact same way on a single cavity smoker as it does with the dual cavity smoker. So we're going to get right in it. First thing we're going to do, flip the unit on. Give it just a couple of minutes for the software to boot up. For our dual cavity smoker, the first screen the operator is going to see is this screen here. We're going to have the FWE logo, and it's just going to simply call out upper and lower ovens. Again, this is only going to be present if the operator has a dual cavity smoker. The screen will just be a little bit different if it's a single cavity smoker. So what I'm going to do is just take you through really quickly how to set up a cook profile and show you really the ins and outs of the unit. So before we even do that, just a quick look inside. This is a pretty heavily used unit. Do quite a bit of testing out of this unit, so you will see some carousel built up. I tell people also, if your smoker doesn't look like this, you're not doing something right. So it's going to be black, it's going to be dirty after the course of a few smokes that go through the unit. So universal universal tray slides come standard with 3 wire racks per cavity. So dual unit will come with 3 wire racks per cavity. Fully adjustable universal tray slides. So even if you aren't using the wire racks, this will hold an 18 by 26 inch sheet pan, and it will also hold 2 12 by 20 hotel pans double deep. Unit's gonna come standard with 1 internal temperature probe per cavity. Recessed in the back here is the plug. That temperature probe stays right in the unit. Drip tray for catching all the drippings when the operator is going through their cook profile. Drip tray comes convenient with a spigot so that you're not losing all of that wonderful flavor that you can retain from the juice. Smoke tray. This smoke tray is fully integrated into the cook, so once you set up the cook, you will not have to touch this again. One thing I do want to mention, this smoke tray is behind the door. It does get hot. The handle does get hot. So a good rule of thumb is prior to setting up your cook, prior to loading your proteins or whatever you may be using smoking, remove the drip tray. Okay? Allow this thing to go through the preheat and then remove your chip tray. Allow the unit to heat up, go through its preheat before you load the chip tray back in before the smoke starts. This drip tray will hold approximately 3 cups of wood chips, and we recommend a damp wood chip. I want to show you really quickly the cold smoke option. So not only is this unit a smoker, but it's also an oven. So it will act just like an oven. The elements firing in the oven will run during the smoke, period, unless you tell it not to. So this is where the cold smoke feature comes into play. So here at the bottom of the screen, it's going to allow you to choose cold smoke or not. If you use cold smoke, simply turn it on, and at this point, the unit is ready to cold smoke. You can see the green indicator light came on, letting you know the cold smoke is on. And as you can see, this icon appeared, which it simply looks like a little play icon. If we hit that, your smoke element will begin to fire. If you do choose to use the unit as a cold smoke apparatus, maybe you're smoking vegetables or cheese, or you're doing a cold smoked fish, the element is still going to get hot to create the smoke from the chips. So one thing to keep in mind is this unit will create a little bit of heat. Now the way we bypass that heat and really create an environment for cold smoke is to add ice to either the drip tray or some type of vessel that is going to be oven safe. That ice will help maintain the cold environment and compensate for the heat that is being created by the chip box. Let's just go ahead and get this unit set up for an actual cook and smoke. So we're just gonna go ahead, again, make sure we're at the upper oven. We're gonna choose our cook icon, just simply press that, release. It's gonna ask you now if you how long you want the smoke operation to happen during the cook. So we can go from 1 minute to 4 hours. Simply touch and release the smoke icon. It's gonna bring you up to this keypad, and then you're gonna be able to key in your time. So let's do 3 hours and 45 minutes. 3 hours and 45 minutes. Just gonna hit the check mark to accept it. We can now see that 3 hours and 45 minutes for our smoke time. We do not want to use this unit as a cold smoke. We want to actually cook and smoke. So it's not gonna be a cold smoke, we're just gonna take that off. And as you can see, the play icon was replaced with the next icon, and we're simply gonna hit that next icon to take us to the next phase of the cook setup. So the next phase of the cook setup that we're gonna set is the actual oven temperature, or what the item is actually going, the temperature of the item that you put into the unit is actually going to cook at. 250, 225 degrees, 250 degrees are always a very, very good starting point for anytime you want to smoke just about anything. So we're just going to go ahead and put in 225 degrees. It does read out in Fahrenheit. You can change it to Celsius if you're in the European market. So 225 has been entered on the keypad. We're going to hit the check mark, and you can see 225 degrees has now been set for our oven temperature. We're going to hit next for our next parameter that we're going to set for our cook. This is going to allow you to choose between a timed cook and cooking via the probe. So let's go ahead and first set up the time cook. We're simply going to press and release this clock icon. Again, it's going to take you to that same keypad. And let's say we actually want to cook a brisket, smoke a brisket. We want it to go for 12 hours. We're going to dial in 1200 for 12 hours. Hit the check mark. And as you can now see, the cook time has been set for a total of 12 hours. If you want to cook using the probe, we're simply going to touch and release the probe icon. Now we're going to set the probe for the internal temperature that it needs to reach during that cook. So typically for barbecue, you want it to be 190, 200 degrees. So let's say we're doing that same brisket. I want my internal temperature to be 200 degrees. 200 degrees is also the top out temperature for the probe. So we'll put that at 200 degrees, hit the check mark. And as you can see now, the probe icon is highlighted and it's showing you that 200 degrees Fahrenheit has been selected for your probe to read. So we'll leave that set up to cook by probe. We'll go ahead and go to our next button, press and release. It's going to take you to the next parameter to be set, which is our hold temperature. So once the unit goes through the cook and it's either eliminated the time of the cook or the temperature probe has satisfied the temperature setting that the user has put on it, the oven is going to react just like a normal cook and hold oven. It's going to fall back down into that hold stage. At this point, we want to tell the oven what temperature to hold the product at. Simply push the hold icon. It's going to take you to that very familiar keypad, and we want to hold the product at 145 degrees. We'll dial in 145, check mark, And as you can see now, the whole temperature is 145 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm gonna go ahead on and set up the next cook parameter, which is the venting schedule. So this unit does come standard with physical, mechanical door vents, both top and bottom. But this unit also will come standard with the touchscreen, controlled vents on the top of the unit. So the vent schedule works in quarters of the cook. And the best way for me to explain this to you is to break down the cook into 1 hour. So if we were going to put in something to cook and smoke for 1 hour, each quarter of that hour is represented by one block, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So the first block is 15 minutes, the second block is 15 minutes for a total of 30 minutes, the third block is 15 minutes for a total of 45 minutes, and the fourth and final block is a total of 15 minutes for a total of 60 minutes. So you can tell this unit when you want that vent to open. This is all gonna happen in the background so the operator doesn't have to manually, physically open and close the vents during the cook. For me, particularly if I'm using the smoker, I like for a little smoke to build up in the beginning, so I like to keep the vent closed during the first quarter. I like to leave the vent closed during the second quarter, and I like to open the vent during the third quarter of the cook, especially if I'm doing a shorter duration cook, just to allow that smoke to build up. But then at the third quarter, or 45 minutes into that cook, I want to open that vent. So this is telling the unit now to open the vent at 45 minutes into an hour cook, and it's going to remain open for that entire 15 minutes. And then I'm going to close the vent again during the last quarter of the cook. The operation acts the exact same way if you are cooking via probe. The background software, instead of doing it by time, instead of operating the vent by time, it operates the vent on temperature that the internal probe has reached in conjunction with your final temperature. Please don't ask me to explain the math on that one. But for instance, if your cook temperature, your probe temperature is set at 200 degrees and you break that down into 4 quarters, each quarter of the cook is going to be 50 degrees. So for every 50 degrees that your product raises is when your vent actuation is going to take place. So from 0 to 50 degrees, you can tell the unit to stay open or closed. From 50 to 100 degrees, you can tell the unit to stay open or closed. From 100 to 150 degrees, the unit vent can remain closed or open. And then from 150 to 200 degrees, the unit can be told to stay open or closed with the controlled vent. I can clarify that in person if there's any confusion at all, but once you get your hands on it, it's pretty intuitive, then you pick it up pretty quickly. So the vent schedule is actually the last portion of the cook parameter that we're gonna set up. We're simply gonna push next, and the unit will start preheating. Once it's in the preheat mode, you can actually monitor simply by pushing that cook icon. Anytime any number illuminates in blue, that's going to give you the actual reading in the cabinet right now. So the internal temperature of the cabinet right now is at 98 degrees Fahrenheit, and it's looking to reach 225 degrees Fahrenheit, and the unit will be ready to operate. One other thing I want to share with you is just how the smoke operates. So up to 4 hours of uninterrupted smoke time. So if you're cooking a roast beef or you're cooking a brisket and you're doing an 8, 10, 12 hour cook, you're only going to be incorporating smoke for the first, up to the first 4 hours. That's going to happen in conjunction with the actual cooking of the cavity. So if we do a 4 hour smoke, the first 4 hours of the cook are going to be with smoke. The remainder of the cook, whether that be an hour or 10 hours, will be no smoke. We've now gone back to The screen that you will see while the unit is actually in operation, you can see split cavity here. You can see the top unit is actually actively in preheat. The bottom unit is off. A couple of things here: at any time, hit that cook icon. It's going to tell you actual temperature in the cabinet. You can also hit that. It's either going to be a time icon or a probe icon, and it'll tell you what temperature the probe is currently, and will also tell you how much time has elapsed if you're using a time cook. I think that's the brunt of the information I'm trying to convey over to you today. If you guys have any questions at all, please reach out to me directly, and I can get any of those questions answered for you. If not, we'll see you guys in a couple of weeks down in Napa.